It'll take it a second. It'll probably tell you before it tells me that we're live, which is fine. Let's see. I think we are.
Looks like it.
Okay, and I'm gonna grab that link because I just remembered. Okay, and I have it. Okay, let's start. So hello, everyone who I hope is here. Welcome to the Escondido Public Library Virtual Author Chat Series. The series is sponsored by the Friends of the Escondido Public Library and in partnership with the Ripped Bodice Bookstore. I'm your host, Jessica Buck, Adult Services Librarian, and today I am joined by author Denise Williams. We're going to be talking about her debut, How to Fail the Flirting. I'm so excited, and I'm going to read you a little bio. So Denise Williams wrote her first book in the second grade, I Hate You, and its sequel, I Still Hate You, featuring a tough, funny heroine, a quirky hero, witty banter, and a dragon. Minus the dragons, these are still the books she likes to write. After penning those early works, she finished second grade and eventually earned a PhD in education, going on to work in higher education. After growing up a military brat around the world and across the country, Denise now lives in Des Moines, Iowa with her husband, son, and two ornery Shih Tzus who think they own the house. Welcome, I'm so excited. Thank you for being here, doing this amazing week of your book coming out and you just being so excited, and I'm so excited.
Thank you, I'm excited.
And let me bring up the chat so everyone can know watching. If you have any questions for Denise, just pop those in the comments and I will ask those as I see them. Let me bring this up and I'm going to also paste that in there for people that come in later and don't hear that. Okay.
Sounds great.
So let's just start off with, how are you? This is your debut week.
I'm good. I'm very calm. That's a lie. It's been a surreal week. I took the week off of work, which was probably pretty smart. And I thought, oh, you know, after lunch day, I'll just have these sort of luxurious mornings and nothing will be needed to, and that definitely didn't happen. But it's been so exciting to, I mean, see the press and the buzz, but more importantly, just see people talking about reading the book and what it meant to them and having my friends contact me. And the most random thing was maybe the coolest. A young woman who I think worked at a Barnes & Noble in Ohio, was the cashier when my aunt went to buy the book. She said, oh, I follow her on Twitter. I love her. And I'm so excited to read this book. And my aunt told my dad, and my dad called me immediately. And I think it was that first moment in my family realized, like, oh, like some people know Denise. And I swear that woman, whoever she is the most popular person in our family right now. Like, you're invited for holidays when we can get together again.
I love that. That is so exciting. Oh my gosh. I love hearing like when authors talk about, oh, I saw my book in the bookstore for the first time. I just love that stuff. And your book with the little new tag. Wait, where's my camera?
Love it.
Because it's new. And as soon as we're done chatting, I'll make it available so people can start checking it out because there's already holds on it.
Fantastic. I love it.
I just wanted to be able to hold it.
Yeah, I do that all the time. I would be holding this one behind me if I could get it right back in frame.
Okay, so let's start with our questions. And again, if you're watching, you have questions, just ask them and I will ask them. So first, what inspired you to get into romance, first as a reader and then as a writer?
Sure. Talked about my early works in the second grade. I've always loved love stories. I think back to watching The Little Mermaid as a little girl and then like reenacting that. And it was the love story that I gravitated to, that I liked. That's always what I loved. I don't know if I ever really read a true romance novel until my girlfriend Amber and I were at her house, and her mom had on the movie, it was the miniseries for Jules by Danielle Steele, or Jewel. And we saw just a snippet of it before we got kicked out. And we were like, ooh, this is fascinating. And so we snuck back out and watched more of it, and then got to the library and checked out the book. And then I think as a 12, 13, 14-year-old, I inhaled everything Danielle Steele had ever written. Most of those I was probably not age appropriate for me, but that was probably my first foray, and then read some others here and there. And then really, I didn't read romance for a long time. There wasn't really a reason. I just started reading a lot of horror and thrillers and literary fiction. And then I got to graduate school and I didn't get to read anything that wasn't for school. And so I really didn't come back to romance until I was finishing my PhD. And I started commuting. I had an hour and a half in the car every day and started doing audiobooks. So I just kind of found some random books. I was like, oh, this cover looks interesting. This title looks interesting. This concept looks interesting. And they were all romance. And then that was it. Like, I recaught the bug. I found these happily ever after stories. I just found authors who I adored. I think I read or listened to everything Lauren Blakely had written. Mariana Zapata, her books for me were, I love her books. They're really long. They're really great for commuting and driving. But I fell in love with those stories. And those are the books that I was listening to when I thought, maybe I could write romance. Like, maybe I could tell a story like this. These are the kinds of stories I like to read, contemporary, with kind of different stories, multicultural cast, those kinds of things. And so that's when I first thought about it, but I didn't sit down to write the book until about 6 months after my son was born. And I just felt sort of buried in work, in academic writing I was doing, in momming, and all the things that entails. And it was 2016, there was just a lot going on. And I just wanted an escape. And so I was like, I'm going to sit down and just write this little short story for fun about ex-boyfriends and how they shape us. And that short story that wasn't so short grew into How to Fail at Flirting.
That kind of goes in perfectly to the next question, is what drew you to tell this particular story? I'll hold the book up.
You know, I don't know if I knew that's the story I was going to tell when I started writing it. For folks who have read the book, who are going to read the book, there's a best friend character in there named Aaron. Aaron started out as an ex-boyfriend from college. He's very far from that now. But I kind of just wanted to write down that first scene. And in that first scene, Naya, the heroine, is in class and she's dealing with kind of a jackass student. And that's real for anybody who's taught college students. And so that kind of resonated with me. But I don't know that this was exactly the story I was going to tell. I knew that Naya would be an academic at the time, and still there's a lot of vitriol around what professors do and what universities do. And I really wanted to show a very human side of that these professors do research and they teach and they're in, the academy, but also they are real people and they laugh and they tell bad jokes and hopefully they have good sex and, that they're real people. And so that was important to me. And I knew just from early on writing the character that it was a character who would have gone through something. I didn't exactly know what that was. And for folks who haven't read the book yet, definitely take care of yourself in terms of reading the content warnings, because the heroine is a survivor of domestic violence and that comes up in the book. And so the story really kind of grew from there. This is the first novel I'm publishing. It's my debut novel. It's also the first novel I've ever written. I don't think we count those ones in second grade. They were about 9 pages each. But this is the first novel I've ever written. So I learned a lot about writing between that first draft and now. And there's probably about 32 words that are the same, and they're all in that first chapter. And so a lot of that came to be through learning more about writing and how to tell a story and, the beats and how things should happen and flow.
I think it's so exciting that the first one is the first one.
Completely.
And it's
I'm like,
so
okay,
impressive.
20 more, and then I can look back at that first one.
So let me see what question I want to ask next. This one is just a little bit about Romancelandia. For those that don't know what Romancelandia is, just go on Twitter. So the romance community is welcoming, it's protective, and it's just a vibrant group of readers, of authors, and just romance enthusiasts. So what do you think it is about the romance genre that just attracts so many people to come together?
From my perception inside Romancelandia, and this could be true in other genres because I don't write in those other genres and I don't read them as much. So, maybe in thrillers or in horror or whatever, there's that same protection. But I do think part of it is that romance is a genre that tends to be underrated. It tends to be judged. And the old adage is that, you know, because it's for women by women, which really is not true. There's a lot of folks from a lot of identities who are writing and reading romance, but that it, generally speaking, is not from the cishet white male gaze as a genre. And so I think a lot of us inside Romancelandia know that. We know that we are pushing against something, but I also think that romance authors as a group could easily be described as just badasses. And I hope I can say that.
Yes.
You know, there's folks who are doing all kinds of different work, like in their day jobs or in their background, folks who are fighting against patriarchy and racism and ageism and ableism and all of these things through writing happily ever afters. And that to show representation, whether it is showing, whether it's centering the experiences of women, whether it's queer representation or folks of different races or different identities or experiences or whatever, showing them having a happily ever after, giving them a love story can be a kind of radically political act. It shouldn't be in 2020, but it is. And so again, I just think there's all that energy in this community, and then that's used to move forward. And it's a group of people who get stuff done. Romance authors can be very prolific in their writing and produce a lot. We read a lot. We're voracious readers, I think, as a genre. And I think you just see that in the actions that happen. Recently, folks in Romancelandia, headed by this amazing crew, raised almost $500,000, $1 million now, to get out the vote in Georgia, which is huge. That happened in like 2 weeks or something like that.
It was insane. And the bidding was insane. All I could afford was a magnet.
I got outbid on absolutely everything. So I donated an item and that went out. But I was like, okay, I guess my role is to just donate money on the side and raise the price of everything else. So I think that's where a lot of that comes from. It's that tradition. I will say that the community I've found in Romancelandia has been incredibly supportive of, I have this question, or I have this issue, or this is going on, or even just, you know, liking things and sharing things and celebrating. My debut day felt like a love fest, and so much of that was Romancelandia, and that was really sort of lovely.
And what, just in terms of the genre and not just diversity, but just everything, what would you like to see more happening in the genre?
I mean, I think we always want more representation across lots of different identities, also intersectional identities. There's that wonderful TED Talk, and I'm forgetting the author, but on this idea of the danger of a single story, that we definitely want representation, and we want lots of representation. So if I write, you know, if I want to write, I'm writing a fat heroine, like there's not just one way to write a fat heroine, because there are many. That's what would be great. And that's true for so many identities. But I also think it's not even what I'd like to see more. I wish others would see more of the depth and breadth of the romance genre. Like there can always be more, again, representation, but there is so much happening across traditionally published, but also in indie published, self-published books, in terms of romance and what it can be and what it is, but people don't know about. And so I wish that was seen or appreciated more. I taught a university class last spring, which we called Moving Past Bodice Ripping Towards Shredding the Patriarchy, Romance Novels as Tools for Justice, something like that was the title. And it was university honor students. They were engineers and agronomists and an English major or two in there, but mostly none of them had really read romance. A few people said, I've seen like those kind of bodice rippers on the shelves, or my mom had Jane Austen. But then we had this whole class where we dug in and they read romance. We had guest speakers. They got to talk to Priscilla Harris and Meryl Wilsner and Kennedy Ryan and pitch their own novels, some of which were amazing, and I hope they write them. And so that was really cool to just expose them to different authors and different things they didn't know about romance, and to really kind of deconstruct the genre with this group of folks who weren't already involved in it. So we're going to teach that again in the spring on campus, which should be fun.
Jealous. I want to take this class. I miss college sometimes.
Sometimes.
just a little bit. So your book, How to Fail at Flirting, it's the environment is similar to kind of what you're around because it's like the university environment. Did you have any fun research that you had to do for the book, or was it pretty much just what you know and then just your imagination?
I did research on a lot of different things. Probably one of my more fun ones is there's a scene in the book where the couple, they're in Chicago and trying to think not to spoil things. He's a tourist and she sort of pretends she's a tourist. And so they kind of go do some touristy things and they go out to Navy Pier and they go to what used to be the Hancock building. And they go on this experience called Tilt, where you're at the top of the Hancock building, a mile in the air. And there's like this little, like area you're in, and then you're in it and it tips forward. So you're looking kind of down on Magnificent Mile. That was not there the last time I was in that building. And so I watched all these YouTube videos of people on this ride and like what it was like. And my husband was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "It's for work." I'm just watching YouTube videos of like random home movies of people kind of on tilt. So that was kind of fun. The heroine takes some self-defense courses and then uses some of that. So I watched a ton of videos around that and I just felt very strong and empowered. I was eating Cheetos while I did it. I wasn't working out, but that was kind of cool research. But otherwise, the university environment was very similar to experiences I've had, or my academic, my PhD is in education. So I studied a lot of educational environments. So some of it comes from there.
Because you mentioned Cheetos, I'm going to ask this question. So do you have specific snacks that you snack on when you're writing, or do you not snack while you're writing? Because I know some people are snackers and some people aren't.
I'm definitely a snacker, but I'm not particular about it.
Whatever's
I was
there.
drafting last night with some leftover launch day cake. I do love Cheetos, but no, I don't really have a specific kind of like ritual food or drink. There's usually a Diet Coke somewhere nearby me. But yeah, I just like to have something to kind of munch on while I'm in the zone, especially more so when I'm editing versus when I'm writing. Because the Cheeto dust gets on your keyboard, it's the whole thing. So
yeah, and the fingers. Oh my gosh. And then people know that you've been eating them. It's evidence.
They do, so you have to, be low key. You got to wait till the kid goes to bed so he doesn't steal them from me. But no, I don't have a lot of writing rituals. I know a lot of authors do. I'm kind of ritualless.
Do you have a just writing process that's kind of developed since you started writing How to Fail at Flirting? Because I know that there's an excerpt for the next one in the back, The Fastest Way to Fall. Is that what you're working on? Have you already finished that? You're working on another one?
Yeah, that one is done. We're working on editing it now.
Okay.
But yeah, working on some other ones, and there'll be some things coming out about that soon, hopefully. Yeah, working on that. In terms of a process, I really didn't know. I knew very little about fiction writing when I started How to Fail at Flirting. So I would say the process was write 110,000 words that don't go anywhere. Think it's good, show it to people, realize it's not. Revise it, 110,000 words that you think is great, take it to critique partners, realize you've got a lot of work to do, add a plot, add some character arcs, cut 20,000 words, and then it's good to go. So as processes go, it was not very efficient. My process now is I like to kind of sketch out the plot. I usually sketch out about 60% of it, and then I get bored and I go start writing. And at about 70%, I realize I don't know what's happening, and then I finish plotting. And then to kind of fast draft that. So The Fastest Way to Fall, I wrote in probably a month, maybe 6 weeks.
Wow.
I wrote the bulk of it over at National Novel Writing, which I don't think I'll ever write 90,000 words in a month again, but I did, and then take about 6 months to edit it. And I have some very trusted critique partners and beta readers who I know will give me feedback on different things, which I really appreciate. And that was definitely true what I found at the end of writing How to Fail Flirting. So I had folks who I read it like who are in academia, and I was like, okay, like what do you see that's out of kilter? I showed it to my major professor, and everybody had asked about the love story and the character development and these emotional scenes. And the first thing Anne said was, does she have tenure? I was like, oh, okay. I didn't think to write about that, but yeah, she doesn't have that yet. So that is really helpful for me to have those folks who I trust to kind of pick things out, or who will be sensitive to different things, in addition to just being able to give feedback on the writing and the flow and the plot and everything.
Was there anything that you like enjoyed the most about writing How to Fail at Flirting, or anything that like stood out?
Oh, there were so many things. I mentioned I kind of just felt buried when I started it. It was my escape, and it still kind of is. Like, I could sit down after the kid went to bed. My husband could put on something I didn't want to watch on TV, so it was easy to focus. And it was just for me a time to recharge and rediscover my own voice and my creativity. And it still is that. I mean, it's a job now, like doing that professionally, but it still feels very much like a hobby. And I think that was the coolest part, is it gave me something to focus my energy on, that was outside of work and that was outside of being a mom or being married or the horrible dogs. And it was just sort of for me at first. And that was a very cool thing. I'm not somebody that does that does self-care well. And so writing it sort of became self-care. And that for me was the coolest part. Since it's published, definitely hearing from people that it touched them, or they loved it, or they stayed up to read it, or anything like that is also pretty great.
Have you gotten any, or have you seen any like tweets or people posting on Instagram that have just made you so excited? Because I know I've seen a lot, because I mean, it's a beautiful cover for How to Fail at Flirting, and all the people that like pose it with things. I love seeing those. Are there any that have like...
I'm so in awe of the bookstagrammers and book bloggers who do these just beautiful spreads of the book, and our art department at Berkeley. I'm just like, 9 times out of 10, I try to do that, and then I just stick it by a fence post and blur the background, and I'm like, yeah, that looks fine.
Whenever I try, there's like a shadow. I'm like, I'll just put it up as something.
I'll just hold it in my hand. So no, that has been really cool. I've screenshot all of them, and I'll put together some compilation. And then the day the book came out, my best friend, we haven't got to spend a lot of time together, but she lives here in town. We both masked up and drove separately, and she trolled with me to a couple of bookstores and to get cake and to kind of see the book. And so that was just a really kind of cool, fun day, especially to get to share it with her, who we were college roommates. So we've known each other for about 20 years.
Oh, that's so cute. Oh, I love that. I love seeing, I don't know if you posted any, and I'll probably look later if you have, of like posing with the book in the bookstore. Did you pose with them?
Okay, so the first bookstore we went to, I didn't know the rules. So I called ahead and just said, hey, I don't know if you have this book. And like, yeah, we have a few copies. I was like, I wrote it and I live down the street. Would you want me to sign them? Is that valuable for you? And they're like, yeah, we'll pull it for you. And I was like, oh no, leave it on the shelf. So they had pulled them to the front for me. And then the next bookstore we went to, they hadn't unpacked them yet. And so we were like, 0 for 2. And then the third bookstore we went to is a wonderful local bookstore who was ready, and they had a little table set up front, but they're not actually open yet. So it wasn't on the shelf because they're just doing curbside. And so I had to find a different bookstore, a Books A Million in the town where I work. And then I just stood in front of it and pointed.
Like, that's mine.
That's my book. And then I just, lingered around it in case anybody wandered by. They did.
Right. Just be like, yeah, you should definitely read that one. I would recommend it. Or just like,
ironically, I did like talk people into like 4 other people's books as I was just lingering there. I was like, oh no, you should read The Right Swipe. That's the one you want. Oh, you work here? I was like, no, I'm just hanging out.
Is there anything that when you were writing, you were thinking, oh, I hope that like this impacts the readers, or something that you hope they take away once you've read the book, anything like that?
Yeah. The thing I most hope comes through, and I hope I did it well, is the heroine has been shaped by trauma, is healing from trauma, or not healing, but what I wanted to write was a story to show that you don't have to feel like you are a whole person to have love, to have happily ever after, to have friends, to have laughter, to have good sex, even, that you can be healing and still have those things, but also that having those things doesn't ameliorate the trauma. And so what the kind of part of the journey that the heroine is figuring out how to be with somebody who will stand next to her while she goes on this healing journey, while she figures out who she is after this, traumatic experience. But a couple of times you sort of see in her this hope that like, okay, like I found love, like I'm trusting somebody. Can I just not have these thoughts and these feelings? And that, it just doesn't work that way. And so I hope that folks see that, and it is everybody's experiences are obviously different, but that it feels honest and feels hopeful, because I think that's the goal.
Thank you. I just realized like I totally just messed up asking that question. I'm so glad that you actually knew what I was asking you. Halfway through it, I'm like, wait a minute, you started this wrong.
We got there, hopefully.
So this question is from Twitter. Are you more inspired by the things that have gone right with your relationships or the things that have gone wrong?
Both, I think. I'm married now, so that's going well. But I think it's both. I said, I started talking about writing about ex-boyfriends, and actually in the next book, I bring some of those exes in and kind of the funny stories. But, if we think about the different people that we trust in our lives and that are part of our romantic past, that, there's just lessons I think that we learn about ourselves. And some of those are delightful and lovely and wonderful. And some are, I got cheated on and here's what I learned from it, And so I think it's both, because all of those, in this example, like relationships shaped kind of who I am today and how I look at love and its possibilities and its downfalls and all of that. I think in romance, ultimately, it comes back to the things that go right or the things that eventually lead to right. Which leading to right would maybe be a good title, maybe not.
I like it.
There's that, is it Rascal Flats, the broken road? God bless the broken road that led me straight to you. I don't listen to country music. I found that years ago and it just spoke to me. And I think I listened to it on repeat when I drove from Kansas to Georgia. But I think so much of that is true in romance, that we go through all these different things, and in life in general, we go through these different things that lead us to happily ever after, or happily for now. So there's my country music recommendation. I didn't know I'd be giving a country music recommendation, but there it is.
Is the next one The Fastest Way to Fall? I haven't read the forward yet. Is it going to be in the same like universe?
It is in the same universe. So the hero in The Fastest Way to Fall is Wes, who is Naya and her friend Felicia's personal trainer. And I love Wes. He's just adorable and delightful, and I hope he measures up to what people love about Jake as a hero. So kind of he has my heart. So I'm pretty excited about that book.
Oh, would you say that in terms of the heroes, you like Wes more than?
Oh, that's like choosing between my children. They're different. They're different. They're both, I write a lot of like cinnamon roll type heroes. So I don't read a lot of alpha heroes. I don't really write alpha heroes. And so they all kind of have that sort of softer side. How to Fail at Flirting is told from a single point of view. It's only told from Naya's point of view. The next one is as dual perspectives. So you're inside of Wes's head. So you get to know him a little bit better than Jake maybe. But no, they're both good. My husband knows if either of them takes corporeal form, we're going to have a discussion about the future of our marriage and what that looks like. So just kidding, honey, if you're watching. But yeah, I don't know if I could choose. They're both good.
So because you mentioned it, did you plan on having the 2 points of view in the next one? Or was that like a decision because you wanted to have like the Wes's perspective more?
When I started writing it, I knew it would be dual point of view. When I started writing How to Fail at Flirting, I don't know if I thought much about it only being from her perspective. That's just how I saw the story. But as I look back on it now, I think it makes sense because though it's a love story and it's about their love story, the stakes are the highest for her. And so it's in her voice, it's in her perspective. In The Fastest Way to Fall, it really is, they both have stakes, they both have pieces that are coming into it, and it's truly like they're each telling a story about their love story. And so I always knew that one would be dual point of view. But I don't know if it was a mapped out, really intentional plan. I just kind of knew that's how the story would be.
Was it more difficult to write? or was it just different?
It was different, I would say. It's just a very different story. It's a slow burn, which is How to Fail Flirting is definitely not that. And so this is a slow burn, which is
I love
different.
slow burn.
Hopefully this measures up. It's got a lot of oh, I'm forgetting the word where you write letters to each other. Epistolary.
Oh,
They text each other a lot. They communicate online at first, and so part of that relationship is digital, which I really love because that speaks to a lot of my love stories at different points in my life. Started out as digital, whether it was AOL Instant Messenger, like the chat boards, or MySpace, whatever, moved past into online dating. So that was different, but the dual perspective for me wasn't as hard. I felt like I could jump between their heads pretty easily. I guess when folks read it, they can tell me if I did that well, but writing it felt like I could easily jump between their perspectives.
I love it when it doesn't happen a lot in historical, but for some reason, even though they wrote lots of letters, but a lot in contemporary, because email, texting is so much a part of our everyday lives. I really enjoy it when it's in the romance books, because my husband and I, when we started, it was basically a long-termish relationship because we were in college at two separate colleges. So it was a lot of Skyping or texting or emails, and he'd write me letters. So I just love it when that's included in romance, because I love it. There's just something about writing to each other, even if it's texting. Ugh.
The text exchanges in How to Fail at Flirting were some of my favorite moments between Naya and Jake, because you just kind of see them both sort of be off the cuff, and you get that. For me, I get that flurry when I read the exchange of text messages as I do when I get a really fun text message or a really sweet or sexy text message. It's just that ooh, without kind of the exposition and the story and the prose around it.
Was it difficult? Because I know personally, I overthink things. So when I'm texting, I constantly rewrite them. Was it writing the conversations in text, was it just the same as the regular dialogue to you?
Yeah, it pretty much was. I do remember when folks were reading it. I had folks in several different kind of generations and also comfort levels probably with texting, who read it and were like, it's not full sentences. And actually now it is full sentences, because I think my characters are so type A, they would text in full sentences. But just other things and nuance, there's I think there's just some norms in texting. At one point, the hero is kind of angry and a little bit drunk, and is kind of being a little snappy. And the heroine says something, and he just writes funny with funny with a period after it. And someone was reading it. No, that is a slight in texting. I was like, I know, it was intentional. But some of those things, I think if you text often, or some of those will stick out. But writing it was not hard. I think editing it was just trying to make it sound natural, and what somebody would text versus what they might say or what I wanted them to say, and then just thinking about who the characters are too. So yeah, full punctuation in the text.
Did you have any favorite, I don't want to make you spoil, but were there any favorite moments that you can talk about without spoiling?
Yeah, my favorite moments really are at the end of the book, but there are so many at the beginning that I really love. And the first night that the couple meets, they meet at a bar, and they sort of have this just lovely kind of night on the town. And so writing that was just a lot of fun, because it was the sort of silliness of a first date. Again, they meet at a bar, they've had a few drinks, so inhibitions are down a little bit. He is a tourist, she's pretending to be a tourist, and so they're kind of seeing the city with fresh eyes. But that was just fun to write, because it was those early days and that excitement of just meeting somebody and being like, okay. And for the heroine, she's like, this is the guy for the one night stand. This will be great. That doesn't work. The one night stand kind of fails, and then she falls in love with them, so she really fails that. But that was a lot of fun to write. I just love every piece of those scenes. A little bit of trivia. It initially took place in Texas. And so all the places that I'm describing, I shifted it to Chicago. It's clearly in Chicago, but some of the little references are actually speaking to Fort Worth, where I was when I wrote the book. I was on a business trip, and I was at a bar with some girlfriends, and a guy in a blue polo was at the bar with us and bought us some drinks and was just chatting with us. And then we left. My friend was like, he was hitting on you. I was like, no, he wasn't. I was married at the time and I did not notice, but I thought, what if somebody was hitting you at a bar in this sort of cheesy way and it actually worked out? So anyway, that's a little bit of trivia. Maybe something anybody wanted to know, maybe not. But initially they were traipsing through Fort Worth and going to ice cream shops and karaokeing and doing some other things like that.
Guys, I love hearing little things like that. Now it makes me want to go through and see if I can figure out like a little mystery.
I mean, if you could, I'd be impressed.
I would also be impressed with myself if I could too. I'm sure there's someone out there who will probably do it. And
I'm sure probably, and tag me in it. So
I figured it out. So I don't think we've talked about this. How long? Because you said the second one was very quick. How long did this one take to like write and edit?
Yeah. I probably wrote the first draft in about 6 months and then rewrote it several times over the course of maybe a year and a half. Because I'm trying to think, I queried it to agents when it was, I thought was roughly done. We did a lot of editing after that, but in the fall of 2018. So yeah, about a year and a half of editing. The second one was much faster. I hope everyone after that a little bit faster. I don't know. I've attempted to write in 2020. It hasn't gone all that well. So when we kind of go back to normal order, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that was a longer process for sure.
And I've spoken to a lot of authors, and everyone has different like involvement with their cover for How to Fail at Flirting. So what was it just like, did you have any say in the design, or were you just like, yes, that's it, I'll take it?
The cover experience for me was a lot of fun. So my editor reached out and said, we're going to talk about your cover soon. One, can you send me covers you like and covers you don't like? So the artist can just get a sense. And then, do you like, she had all kinds of questions, but, do you like seeing their faces or not? What do the characters kind of look like? What are some attributes you'd want to make sure were there? Do you have ideas? Are there colors you don't like? There was a lot of input. And so that if I were to print out that email, my response, it was probably like 10 pages long, probably too. I always have a lot of thoughts. So no, I felt like I had a lot of input. And then when I got they sent me the draft, which was very close to this final version. We just changed one or two small things. It incorporated those things. Like it was the style that I liked. You don't see their faces. Like she's kind of centered. It's a little bit darker because I think the book is funny. Like I think people laugh at it, but it also has some very serious themes in it. Mm-hmm. And so with the illustrated cover, like I knew it was going to be illustrated, which I love, but I like that it's darker. I like that it shows it's clearly an adult romance, and that was important to me too. So I felt like I had a lot of input. I actually got the cover options for book 2 just the other day, and so I was like, I love them both, I cannot choose, kind of like Wes and Jake, and they said I had to, so pick one of those. But they are very wonderful about, for me, I've always loved the options that they gave me, but I have other friends who maybe didn't love that first draft who were able to work with them to do something different, mm-hmm. or to take suggestions or change elements. And that was the same with my UK cover. And it was particularly looking at, is the heroine's skin tone right? Like, we need to edit this to make sure it's accurate. And so I've had really good experiences with getting to have some say in the cover and be consulted and, yes. and have my voice heard and listened to. And part of that, I think too, as an author, is trusting that the professionals also know like what sells, because I would love for my book cover to get somebody to buy the book. I mean, that's part of it too. In addition to being representation and to, look it on shelves. And so also trusting like their kind mm-hmm. of knowledge about trends and colors and those sorts of things.
And I just love the little box.
That is my favorite part.
The little detail. I saw that and I'm like, that's so perfect.
I got some custom cookies made. I posted a picture of them on Instagram, Cookies by Case on Instagram. I ordered them and I love them. And one of the designs I had her do was the little check mark, because that is just one of my favorite things on the cover.
It's just so perfect. It's perfect. And I love that, like, how she's like doing the action and he's the one sitting. So it's like, it's all focused on her. Cause usually it's like the guy's doing like the the whatever, but I love it because she's the one.
She's the
So
one.
I just love it.
I do. I want to get it printed on canvas and hang it up behind me. I just don't know where on the wall it's going to go. So that is coming soon. I'd maybe get a tattoo, but it's a lot of dark ink and I'm kind of a weenie. Probably just the wall hanging.
It is. Maybe. I'm trying to think, like, is there just like a little thing, like the little check marks?
Do the little check mark. I only have one tattoo and I probably need to get it touched up, but it would hurt too much. So I haven't.
Okay, I lost you for a second, but I think everything's fine.
Yeah, the check mark tattoo isn't bad. Once we get out of quarantine, I've been thinking about like what kind of tattoo would I want to get to commemorate it. Because I'm like, I'm almost 40. Like I can get tattoos that, I can work with it.
I love those. I've seen stickers on Etsy that's like tattooed and employed, because for so long there's been that idea of like, oh, tattoos, like that means you're not professional. It's like, no, I think tattoos are fun.
I also work in an area of education that's pretty more liberal in those types of things usually, where we work directly with students. And so I looked around my office and I think just about everybody had a tattoo or was getting one, and most of us had a couple. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is just normal now.
Yeah, I think things are moving that direction. Like, I work in a public library. I've worked at university libraries in the past as a student worker, and I've interned in libraries in like their teaching departments. So it seems like things are slowly getting a little bit more of like, people can dress the way that they need to dress for what's right for them, for what they're doing, and that kind of stuff, which I like.
I appreciate that. And especially lately, it's like, oh, yeah, jeans to work sounds like a good idea. Sweatpants, we're working at home, just business on the top, sweatpants on the bottom. That's kind of normal.
So that just reminds me of something I want to say really quick. For like one of the library conferences, I submitted just like a proposal to talk about like these virtual author chats, and I was trying to come up with a fun name. And I was trying to do something with the fact that like you don't have to wear pants because like it's all virtual. But I could not come up with one that didn't just sound weird. So I had to just like come up with a different name. But I would love if someone could come up with like a professional paper title about like no pants, just a party or something, because I think it's so true for this year. This year, it's just like pajamas on the bottom, wear the shirt, Zoom.
Maybe you could just do like the mullet of author chats. So like business on top, party on the bottom. I don't know, on social media that might get you the wrong kind of attendees too. Who knows?
Oh my gosh, you never know. And back to your cover really quick. I'm really glad that you got so much input, because I know that that's not true a lot of the times. And one of the books that my Romance at the Library book club read, the author visited the book club and talked to us for a little bit. And on the cover, one of the characters is wearing this yellow dress that does not show up at any point in the book. And we were like, and we were waiting, because usually it was a historical, so it's like that iconic. There's usually a ball.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, there's the dress she's wearing. Nope, did not happen at all. So I'm very glad that you had input for this, so that when we see the cover, it represents.
I don't know if I ever described that outfit. I don't think I do, but it's something she would wear. But I am the same way when I have a book cover. I'm always looking for that moment in the book, even if it's just, I don't know if there's a reason for it, but I think that's also why I really like, you don't actually find a lot of description of my characters in the book, or on the book covers, you don't necessarily see a lot of their faces. Because as a reader, I really love to kind of put my own image out there. I want to know a little bit, and I spend some time describing the hero's abs and shoulders and chest, because it's romance, but I actually don't describe my characters in a ton of detail, and so I think that's just what I like as a reader. It really isn't anything I ever started doing intentionally, but I was finishing the second book and someone said, what does the heroine look like? And I was like, well, here's like 7 different pictures I have, and they're like, those people all look drastically different. I was like,
it's whoever you imagine. imagine.
Yeah, just imagine them. They're like, well, what's the hero's race? And I was like, well, in my head it's this, but I don't know if you would know that from reading the book. So those are always like good insights to get from fellow readers.
I like that though, because a lot of times when they're described as being handsome, the author gives like the typical, stereotypical like descriptions of the face, and then that's what they term as handsome. But I like it when it's like it's kind of up to the reader, like whatever you would imagine as being handsome, that's what the heroine looks like. So I love that kind of stuff.
Kind of like that. So yeah, I love my cover, and I it's in my contract that I have consultation, so they have to show it to me basically, which I think is true for most authors. But I really appreciated how collaborative it felt, and really at every step of the way, it was, you know, here's the spine, and here's the back, and here's the page layout, and here's what the there was the kind of an early draft of the page layout. I remember texting or messaging my agent. I was like, I really hate this. Am I allowed to say that? And yeah, they took it out. They did something different that I love, and so that whole process felt for me very collaborative.
And also the marketing graphics for your How My Friends Failed at Flirting, your little Instagram series you did, that was so adorable. I love how everything kind of matched together. And I tried to kind of do that with some of the stuff I made, but I couldn't get it quite right because they're professionals for that. And I'm professional in a different way.
There, I did approach them and say, you know, I have this idea. One, can I do this? And then they offered to make all the graphics and promote it. And that series was so much fun. So if folks are not familiar, I did a series on Instagram Live starting in August called How My Friends Failed at Flirting. And mostly debut authors and a few other authors came on with me for an hour, and I talked them into telling their embarrassing flirting stories. And we talked and laughed, and we talked about the books and did Q&A, but it was really based in this flirting fails and how everybody has them. And it was so much fun to do. We're actually going to do a few more in the spring, just because I have other people who come on and tell embarrassing stories. So I haven't planned that yet because I'm a little behind the ball, but that's coming soon in January. And what I didn't think through when I did this is that when I asked people to tell their flirting story, I would probably need to tell one of my own. And I did 10 of these. So I was like, great. I mean, I have a lot of them in my past, but I was also like, oh my gosh, which ones are funny versus just pathetic? Like I have to dig these out. So yeah, that was a lot of fun, and folks can find those on my Instagram if you want to. They're all posted under IGTV, but they're a lot of fun.
They're hilarious, and they were so cute. I love the whole idea. I was like, she gets it. She gets the content that we need right now.
Embarrassing stories, people making fools of themselves. We're here for it.
So now that you've gotten the first one published, How to Fail at Flirting, the second one is on its way. What is some advice you would give to those who are working on hopefully their first How to Fail at Flirting published book?
Yeah, I think there's probably 3 things that I have shared with people that I still have written above the computer at my own desk. The first is keep going. There are so many points when it's easy to stop. And I mean, take care of yourself, like pause when you need to, but keep going, because that moment where it feels hard, it feels like you'll never finish. It feels like revisions are insurmountable. It feels like I'm getting so many rejections or whatever that is. Like keep going, and figure out what works best for you. And sometimes that is traditional publishing. Sometimes it's indie publishing. Sometimes it's tweaking something, whatever that is. But it's so easy to stop that if it's something you want to do, just keep going and figure out a way to make that happen that's healthy and safe for yourself. I think the second thing is find a community. So there were really 2 places where I found strong community of writers. The second was on Twitter, which is where I've connected with so many romance authors, and some of my best friends who I've never met in person, I met on Twitter, who I feel like talk to about anything with my writing or just about my life. But find your community wherever that is, because those are the people who, when you want to stop, will lift you up. When you feel like revisions are surmountable, they will help you brainstorm how to break them down. When you feel like you've gotten too many rejections to move forward, they will send you a funny GIF and maybe a drink recipe, and help you move on. So find that community. The first place I found that was actually a website called Scribophile, which I cannot recommend highly enough. It's essentially a digital critique group. And you put your work up and people critique it, and then you critique theirs. You kind of gain points by critiquing other people's. It's an open site. They have a free and a paid version. It's the only open site like that I've ever seen where I never once saw a troll. in the, maybe I'm not as active there anymore, but the maybe year or two I was there. So Scribophile was fantastic. I think I learned how to write there. And some of the people you'll see thanked in my acknowledgements are folks that I met on Scribophile, particularly Robin Reidner, who has a few books out in romance and in some other genres. Like, I feel like I learned so much about writing. And I think the third piece of advice I have, again, I tell myself this like every day, and I generally don't listen to myself, but comparison is the thief of joy. And so, like, celebrate your own wins. And it's okay that other people are having wins next to you and are having big wins and are selling books or the best book of the year or winning the Pulitzer. If those are your friends, that's cool. Those are my friends yet. But, getting movie deal or whatever that is, like, focus on your own joy, because just comparing yourself all the time to other people, it's just going to diminish that joy. And it's so easy to do and it's natural to do. But that's something I try to remind myself of every day.
I love those. I think that applies just to everyone too. Like, I think I need to write these down. I can remind myself, because 2020 has been a year. Yep. 2021 will too. So I think those are just good things to remember. And I do think you run into that at every stage of the process, at least every stage I've been in. It was my release week, and I've been so blessed with incredible press and wonderful. I think I don't read the reviews anymore, but I think there've been some good ones out there. And just these like wonderful accolades that I'm so proud of, but it's still so easy to see like, oh, that's great, but look at this person over here. And so I think it just happens at every point. And so just kind of reminding yourself, like, your journey is excellent and your wins are substantial and important, even if just to you. Well, I'm so happy. Oh, it's my fault. It's my technology. I'm low on battery. It's my own fault, but we're towards the end, so it's fine.
Okay, it's fine.
Well, I was gonna say that I'm so glad that you wrote To Fail the Flirting, because I enjoyed it, and I hope the patrons enjoy it once I let them borrow it.
I'm so excited for it to be released. Like, it's like doves.
Yes, I wish I could make little paper ones to put around it on the new book section, but I think that would take too much time. But yeah. I think I have some origami birds at my desk. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put it up with the new books. I'm going to put the origami birds next to it, and we can pretend that they're released.
Post the picture. I will totally share that. That's fantastic.
I will do that. I just hope that sometimes I get looks from people when I start posing books, like, what is she doing? I swear I work here. So we are a little bit over, and I'm just going to go to our closing questions. And this is the question that I always ask at the end, and it's my favorite question. What is your favorite library memory?
I have so many, but actually the one I'll share is probably from just shortly before the pandemic. I think it was either the very beginning of 2020 or the very end of 2019. And I took my son, who was 3 at the time, into our local library in Iowa. And we were just going to go look at the books. And I was like, what do you want to read about? He said, I want a book about penguins. So I was like, okay, well, let's go over to the computer and I'll kind of show you how we can search for a book about penguins. And he put his little hand on my hand and said, no, Mom, let's go on an adventure and find the penguins. And so we walked through the board books and the children's books, and we found our book about penguins that he wanted to check out. But I just sort of loved it was just cute in general. Let's go on an adventure. But that idea that in a library, you can go on an adventure and find that book that's going to change your life, or that's going to be so meaningful to you, or that is going to be the message of hope, or the thriller that keeps you going, or the skill that you want to learn. That's all in libraries. And this idea that all of that is in one place, I think, is so amazing. And I've seen that at so many different points in my life, from when I was a little kid, kind of going on my own adventures, to when I was writing my dissertation and was basically living in our academic library, to just being in between graduate school and my first job. I had 2 months off to kind of just chill and be unemployed back at my parents' house. And I went to the library every 3 days and learned about table etiquette and brothels and anything else I could find, just to kind of fill the time. And so that idea of let's go on an adventure is so, for me, what libraries can be.
That is so adorable.
It was pretty cute. Now I'm about halfway through the search. I was like, we could also just go look it up and know where the penguin books are, but that's fine.
I just love this is what we're doing. This is my decision. We're going on an adventure.
It's pretty in keeping with his personality. So
I hope that story gets told at like a graduation party.
there are so many stories to tell at a graduation party.
It'll be the next adventure.
Yes, yes.
So I was going to ask what's next for you. We've already talked about what you've been doing a little bit, but is there anything else that's going on that you can share without spoiling?
Kind of right now, it's waiting, finishing up book 2 and digging into some revisions on that, and then it's just sort of exciting to see How to Fail at Flirting kind of out in the world and see what readers think of it. I got the audiobook a little bit early, and I've just been listening to it on repeat. I probably hadn't actually read the book in about a year, just because folks know the publishing timeline is long. Like, you go on to do other things. And so I've been listening to the audiobook, and I'm just enamored with it. My son is really sick of me listening to it in the car. Like, this lady again. So I'm just gonna, cruise around and do that. But working on revisions, and then hopefully, like I said, sharing some things about forthcoming books soon.
Yay. Oh, I'm so excited. And I'm going to keep an eye out because I can't wait to see what you do next. Because
I'm pretty excited, and I've got some fun ideas in the hopper. So we'll see what happens.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I've been excited about you coming to chat with me because I was like, I can't believe that it was a yes for How to Fail at Flirting, because I was like, no way they're going to say, oh yeah, during, the book launch week, she'll chat with you in your library. But it was a yes. I was like, yes.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited. I mentioned earlier, I grew up in Southern California in Moreno Valley, Riverside area, kind of inland empire. And so I was like, I get to go back to California.
Even virtually. It's so fun. Traveling the world through Zoom.
Yes, exactly. But thank you for having me. I'm so excited. Thank you to the Rip Bodice for stocking the books and selling those, and to folks who joined us. It was so good to chat with you.
Yes, thank you. And I was going to say, you can purchase How to Fail at Flirting from the Rip Bodice Bookstore, and you can also check it out from the library today once I put it out there. If you're interested in more free online programming, don't forget to check out our Facebook events and our library website to see all the fun and free digital events we have planned. This is the last virtual author chat of 2020. So I hope that you'll visit us next year for more fun, more laughter, and more authors. Our first chat of 2021 will be January 9th. So I hope to see you then. Thank you so much, Denise, for joining me. And thank you to everyone for watching. Hope you have a great night.